So what are you going to do now that skinny jeans are out?
They're not out. You're lying.
According to Big Generation Z, it is out.
Big Gen Z.
Big Gen Z has declared...
These kids are making corporations now?
They're not really corporations, they're co-ops, really. But yes.
Okay, so Big Gen Z has declared they're out. What's in?
The more loose-fitting baggy jeans brought by Billie Eilish.
I refuse.
I think I like a good skinny jean in a certain moment. You know, I like a good black skinny jean. I like a good like light blue skinny jean. I mean, we don't wear the same skinny jeans we did as when we were teenagers, which were
It's true.
A super skinny.
They have
Hot Topic super skinny.
They've gotten looser since we were in high school. But because I've seen the kids wear their baggy jeans, I still don't like it.
Well, here's the thing.
We teeter on that edge between the generations,
we're kind of in the middle. Like we are not big Gen Z. I guess we're like little Gen Z. We're little Gen Z. They're big Gen Z.
Lowercase G.
Yeah. We're also like little millennial. We're kind of little both.
I guess to answer your original question, what am I going to do?
Yes.
I'm just going to be an old fogey who wears skinny jeans.
Well, I feel like the point of it is just to wear what you want. Isn't that the point of the whole, like, you know, gender, queer, you know, sexually free, aware generation? Is that you just wear what you want? I mean, we're just androgynous.
But jeans have always been androgynous. Everyone wears jeans of any shape
true.
or size.
It's true.
Why can't we bring bell bottoms back?
We need to submit a report to Big Gen Z on bell bottoms. I like that.
I don't like that I have to answer to the Big Z.
All right.
I have to fill out a report.
I'm sorry. You cannot. Are you crossing the picket line now? You're going against.
Somebody has to resist, Jerome. I've already I never downloaded TikTok.
Wow. This is kind of like the I don't have a Facebook except of today's standards.
I don't have a
never
TikTok.
downloaded TikTok.
I will not get a TikTok.
I spend too much time on
watched
it.
The Social Dilemma.
Welcome to the Avon, and I am one of your hosts, Jerome Allen.
I am another host, Topher Wagner.
We are doom scrolling, so you don't have to. This week was not light, was light. You know, there's always politics.
You know, boring is good.
Boring is good.
Is so
boring
good.
is good. Except the only person who didn't have quite the boring week was Mr. Cruz.
We always just barely miss the boat on the biggest story of the week.
That's so true. We record and then, you know, we have someone flee their state. You know, it's feeling kind of cold here. I'm going to leave.
I'm going to pick up the kids, take my wife, and we're leaving Snowball.
Oh, the picture of the dog. For those who haven't seen it, there's a picture of Ted Cruz's dog waiting at the door because they left him.
But the funniest thing is that this story has just continued to play out all week long. Like, people have not let up on Ted Cruz. Recently, because he's really trying to get people to stop talking about it, he accused the media of having, like, you know, they missed all the Trump talk, and because they're having Trump withdrawals, they're making this big hoopla about Ted Cruz because they had nothing else to talk about. And then today, he like made a statement being like, "Stop being assholes."
Wow. This is the same man who basically instigated the insurrection a month ago, right? Interesting.
Well, let me check the records.
Yes.
He did.
Ooh.
He did incite an insurrection. Oh, also, he's an asshole.
So, yeah, you don't get to tell the media to lay off. And but it kills me to see his press briefing where he was like, I got on the plane and I just felt bad about myself. This was the wrong thing to do. So I got back. I got the next available flight in. Then he handed out approximately 3 water bottles.
And then people came for him because he was supposed to be quarantining. And like in those pictures that he put out on his Twitter page of him handing out water bottles, he's like touching people and shaking hands. And it's like, no, dude, there was no way for you to clean this up. There was no way for you to come out of this on top. No. Just take the L.
It would have been bolder if he just stayed in Cancun.
It was pretty bold of him to throw his daughters under the bus, saying that they were the ones that made him go.
Surprised that he's like, oh, it's my daughter's fault. Oh, I'm just being a dad chaperoning my adult children to Mexico during the middle of a pandemic.
Because his wife isn't responsible enough to escort his children to Mexico?
Oh, but did you see that his roommate was going?
Who's his roommate?
His college roommate was going to Cancun. He was also on the flight to Cancun, yes. So,
Ted Cruz's
he left a
college
chaperone.
roommate is still friends with Ted Cruz?
Yeah. That's
his neighbors, though, they weren't having any of it.
Of course not.
Leaking the group chat.
Well, also speaking of leaking, did you see that United Air has launched an investigation into like who leaked the records? Which okay, this is like a greater conversation, but like it's so funny how we are supposed to accept anti-whistleblower rhetoric, but to have whistleblowers within our society is a super important. So it's not about who leaked it. The fact is it was found out. What was it supposed to be found out? Whose travel records or what? It doesn't matter. This is still a public official.
Yeah, I just don't understand this idea that we should like have secrets from everyone, especially now that, I mean, all people did was just take pictures of him and post it on Twitter, right?
Yeah, nonetheless, if even if it wasn't leaked that he was going or where he was going, we still saw the like full suitcase. This is true.
The funniest part about it to me was just how much AOC was doing for Texas.
Shout out to AOC
instead of Ted Cruz,
and shout out to Casey Musgraves, also donating to Texas Relief by making shirts. AOC, what was it? Donated how much?
She raised like $5 million in the span of like 4 days. She raised like $1 million a day.
Yep.
As much as I think like money in politics is a big issue, at the current state, being able to raise $5 million in 4 days is the most extreme political power that I've ever heard anyone have.
That's a good point.
And I know that currently Chuck Schumer is really trying to cozy up to her because he's terrified that she's going to come for his Senate seat in the primaries come 2022. Because anyone that can raise that much money that fast is a huge political player.
It's funny how much it just frightens people that someone who is of the people, for the people, in the most like purest sense of like what we are supposed to be creating in a democratic society, because that person isn't playing by the status quo established democratic rules of this is us, like we operate here and citizens operate there. They're just supposed to observe us. The fact that she's like interacting and engaging and actually using her power not for her own like re-election's sake, you know, it should be inspiring more than anything.
When Trump was in office, he threatened to withhold aid from certain states that didn't support him in the election and things like that. And the majority of Texans think that she is a danger to our society, and that did not stop her from doing everything she could to help them in their time of need, because she's actually just a compassionate person and not a politician who's just trying to do. She doesn't need the PR.
No.
She didn't need to clean up her image the way Ted Cruz is like loading water bottles into the back of people's trunks. She just did it because it's the right thing to do.
Exactly. Well, at the end of the day, I mean, we have to, again, recognize that like politics have been reframed into like entertainment, but at the end of the day, politicians are public servants. So the fact that she is addressing a public need, a dire need at that, I mean, people are currently like in crisis. I mean, seeing the fact that they raised the price of the kilowatts per hour to like $10,000, and now people are left with these like enormous bills just because that's the market. It's bullshit.
Well, another thing that happened this week, they had the first congressional hearings on the Capitol Riot insurrection, terrorist attack, whatever we're calling it this week.
And it's just a good old Rochambeau of pointing fingers is what's happening. The Capitol, the chief of the Capitol Police saying we didn't get the information. The other guy saying we didn't get the we never received your request. And then the union, the union of the Capitol Police said that the reason why it all happened is because the leadership is disjointed and chaotic. And now we're seeing it in the hearings that they indeed are chaotic and they don't communicate.
Yeah, I did not expect to come out of that with more questions than I had going in. It is so confusing to me how there were so many failures on so many levels to even just communicate between departments.
Right.
Like the FBI office in Norfolk, Virginia made a report and sent it to Capitol Police Chief Son's office.
Right, the day prior,
and he didn't even know about that memo until 24 hours before the hearing. So
which is intriguing because I heard about it
after the
about
events.
2 days later on NPR. So that's wild to me, right?
Because everybody knew that this was happening. Anybody who was on 8chan or Parler or any social media site knew that there was brewing violence.
Or even folks who weren't on it had that feeling of, like, you know, this is the last stitch chance. I mean, there were murmurings coming from many different things. So it's not... I mean, at the end of the day, when it was happening, I wasn't surprised. But more or less, the fact that we're seeing, like, a bumbling of, like, taking ownership. I mean, they all resigned, all these 4 people who are talking, but there's still no clear way forward right now. But of course, the union said, we just need to get rid of the interim person. They're saying get rid of them too. Start from scratch and redo it. I mean, a paramilitary institution wasn't able to protect its most vulnerable building from pretty dumb like terrorists. Yeah. That's strange.
And of course, in normal fashion, some of these Republican senators were up to some shenanigans.
The shenanigans.
Ron Johnson bringing up the provocateurs and fake Trump supporters and Antifa. It's nauseating.
I wish the Democratic Party or the progressive wing of the Democratic Party or even the government in general were as organized as conspiracy theorists think it is. Because if so, my God, it would be working in a much more efficient manner right now.
We'd get so much done.
So much would get done if it worked in the way that they think it is. Like the subversive thing they're thinking, like, wow, I wish. Like, I mean, sure, we're surprised by what we see that the CIA and other folks did in like the 60s and the 50s and prior to this time, back when we didn't have the intelligence community of today and the internet. But if the Department of Labor website still looks like it's from Windows 98, I highly doubt they were able to establish provocateurs and all that jazz. Of course, that goes without saying that this may be a whataboutism, but that goes without saying that last summer we did see in a lot of protests that police were actually starting a lot of the protests and rioting. So it's not impossible, but to the extent that they're saying it is organized and there's briefings and there's meetings and there's PowerPoints about like who's going to do what, no.
I don't know. It kind of goes back to those other conspiracy theories of like crisis actors faking school shootings and stuff. Like, you're an actor. You know a lot of actors. I've never known an actor so desperate for work that they're going to like dress up in MAGA gear and stage some sort of false insurrection for George Soros' organization or whatever. Because I don't know. I think a lot of these people, they don't have any real claims about like who these provocateurs are working for. They're just people who hate Trump, who want the conservatives to look bad. That's the conspiracy theory.
Right.
And there's nothing to stand on there. And also, like Ted Cruz and Senator Hawley, they wanted to poke at this idea that Nancy Pelosi was involved, asking some of these officials, did you speak with Nancy Pelosi? Did she withhold any of these resources? Or did she delay you from being able to act quickly? And the answer is no. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, that entire argument just
Nancy
crumbles.
Pelosi is not in charge of the Capitol Police. They answer to her, but she's not calling shots. That's like saying, that's like asking the Department of Defense person, like, so why don't we have enough solar panels? It does not. It's not the same thing.
And then, of course, the person that Pelosi or whoever was organizing this appointed to lead the hearing, his name Russell Honore. Senator Hawley made some claim about this guy has no right to be leading this security
and he has no right to be in Senate. I'm surprised he's still in the Senate.
Well, if you're involved in the insurrection, if him and Ted Cruz helped incite the insurrection, why are they questioning witnesses to the event?
Wait, they were on the panel?
Yes. Senator Hawley was getting to question these witnesses, and he was claiming that the person leading the hearing had no right to be speaking on the matter because he was too partisan.
I'm shook. I can't even handle that. What? That's not even how like a normal court would work in any manner. Conflict of interest, like get him off the jury. That's wild. That's wild. So in our weekly installment of COVID Relief Talk, so the COVID relief bill has passed the House. It is going to the Senate. Apparently, there's a person in the Senate who supposedly reads the whole bill and checks whether it fits budget reconciliation. This is called the bird bathing process of the Senate. So minimum wage, $15 minimum wage, is in this relief bill that they wrote that passed the House. But Joe Manchin has proposed he'll approve of it if it'll be $11.
Oh, I heard 10. It's now 11.
Yeah, 11. What do you think of this?
It's not like they got this $15 thing out of nowhere, right? Like, economists have studied it.
No, it's adjusted to inflation.
I'm fine if they want to increase it incrementally or do whatever sort of process they need to do.
About that, right? But there's a legitimate like intersection between being aware of the amount of stress we can put on small business owners, but actually giving small business owners the ability to adjust by either giving a grant or a loan or whatever it may be in order to like supplement the amount that has to be paid, and also recognizing that the pandemic will come to an end. So yes, it is a legitimate point coming from both sides to say like, is it fair to do this to small businesses right now? But that's also placing a permanence in the moment and the fact that 1 million Americans a day are getting vaccinated.
Right, and I've heard arguments that say that like a lot of the unemployment is going to be increased if you go to $15 an hour, which is why I think, do it in whatever way you think is going to balance that out so that you don't lose more jobs than you are helping people who have the jobs.
Right.
But at the same time, saying $10 an hour is basically saying, okay, we can't pull you out of poverty, but we'll make you slightly less poor. I think it is likely that the bill comes out with something short of $15 an hour.
I agree.
But maybe that will just be for the sake of the pandemic, because like you said, maybe this is not the best time to put that sort of pressure on small businesses. But at the end of the day, we need to get the federal minimum wage up to $15 an hour. That is what working class families need, period. And, maybe with the extra support and the stimulus that we can provide, $11 an hour will obviously still help a lot of families that are struggling. But it doesn't change the fact that it's going to just be harder and harder to legislate another minimum wage increase after.
This is very true, because it will not have the same teeth as budget reconciliation as this has now. I mean, this is opportune. It is opportune, and it is quite correlated to commerce and the Treasury and the fact that like you're paying Americans more. It's also this funny thing too, that like the myth of like if you have more money then you're going to sit around and do nothing. The fact is, well, like when a stimulus is received by someone who's below like $100,000 or families, that money is spent almost immediately on the utilities, food, rent, and bills. It's not just like, I mean, for some folks it can be disposable income, but for a lot of folks that's not the case. So you wanted to talk about the USDA?
Right. So, they're still confirming all of Joe Biden's cabinet nominations, right? They've done 9 out of 23 right now.
Right.
And I was looking up all the like voting records of the who the senators have voted for and who they haven't for. And most of them have been like pretty close to unanimous support for, maybe 8 or 9% of them do not. Unsurprisingly, Senator Hawley has voted no on every single nomination that's been confirmed so far. Ted Cruz is in second place with 8 no's. And as I'm scrolling down through this list, I find that Bernard Sanders, independent senator from Vermont, voted no on one of these nominations. And I am a big fan of Bernie, so I'm curious to see where he had issues. And it was in the Department of Agriculture with this nominee, Thomas Vilsack, who held this position in the Obama administration. He's already done this job previously. And so I was looking into it more, and I was finding that apparently there are a lot of black farmers in the country who are really disappointed with this pick, and they were hoping for a nomination of Marcia Fudge, who was
I've heard her name tossed around a lot.
Who was a congresswoman who was on the chairman of the Committee of Agriculture or something previously. And I did not realize that the USDA has a really long history of discrimination against black farmers. Apparently, the peak number of black farmers was in 1920 with 949,889. Today, there are only 48,000 black farmers because of all of these years of them not being able to get loans, having their farms foreclosed on them, and just general regulation and discrimination from the Department of Agriculture.
Yeah.
And apparently, under the Obama administration, it was even worse than it was in the Bush administration. And people were having even more closures of their farms and even less loans being handed out. And so people are not very confident in this guy that he's really changed much of his ways. And I'm not saying that he specifically is a racist who's saying no on these things, but he obviously didn't make the changes necessary.
He's not creating any structural change in order to prevent this, correct?
Right. So because of this backlash, Biden nominated a woman of color to be his deputy. Her name is Jewel Bronaugh, and apparently she would be the first woman of color in this position of the deputy cabinet member. Isn't it just kind of weird that if the administration and the cabinet had issues with this in the last administration, why would you just elect the same guy and hope for a different result? Because his claim is, I was a different person back then, and I'm going to lead differently this time.
What should have happened is he should have said, I hear the criticisms and I will withdraw my position and I will go for deputy and let someone else lead instead of me. So I think it's interesting how instead of like committing to the structural change that was required, he more or less sidestepped all criticism and blamed it on like there has to be like a technical word for this of like blaming something you did in the past as like that was just me back then. Oh, it was the 2000s. It was the 2010s. It was a different time then. Where it's like no, that was only like 4 years ago. Let's be clear here.
Well, and obviously people were shocked back then that things didn't change because, the first black president, he nominated this guy. Obviously, he's going to have our best interest at heart. And, not to say that like all farmers are struggling these days. They all need help. But,
sure.
To be a black farmer is strange because it was hard for them to own land.
Yeah, I mean, owning land was the biggest thing that was demanded for black freed people post the Civil War. And that was denied actively, and it was returned to a lot of white landowners. I mean, the history of it is vested in propping up white landowners and like depressing black landowners.
And the reason that families are farmers for several generations is because the thing that allows them to continue to do that work is that they own this land.
That's generational wealth for you.
So if you're not going to assist them and give them the loans they need to keep producing things on that land,
right,
then it's just useless to them, and then they have to sell it off, and you'll never get that generational wealth back because, they're not making any new land for people to purchase.
No.
So I'm gonna give Tom Vilsack the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna give him a chance.
We'll keep up with them at the cast.
Yeah, I'm just glad people are holding his feet to the fire and holding him accountable, and in this article that I was reading about this, it seems like a lot of the younger generations of these families are starting to seek out more help from other places, try to apply for grants from the government, and some of them even going to GoFundMe, which, I mean, at this point...
GoFundMe is the backbone of the healthcare system.
GoFundMe is the backbone of our economy, basically, at this point, for working people who can't catch a break. Yeah. We're crowdsourcing all of these funds that the government can't give to us. We should have had enough funds to support Texas, but instead we needed AOC to go online and ask her grassroots supporters for all this money. And, I think it's awesome that we can do that, but that should be the cherry on top. It shouldn't be the backbone of helping people,
Yeah. We got to get up out of here.
Thank you for listening to the Avant In podcast. My name is Topher Wagner.
I'm Jerome Allen.
If you liked what you heard, please go and give us a review on Apple Podcasts and tell a friend. Credit for our music goes to
Lakey Inspired, City of Angels. I always really like this quote from Obi-Wan Kenobi. If you strike me down, I'll come back stronger than ever.
Goodbye.